In case you don't know, we use Anchor to distribute our podcast. We love it because it's free, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. There's no minimum listenership to start earning money, if that's a goal for your podcast. And everything you need to make a podcast is in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started creating your own podcast.
Talking this week about the 50-30-20 budget. This is one that I'm kind of a fan of, mostly because if you are starting out, right, like you're kind of thinking, okay, I should probably have a budget of some kind. And you're not really sure where to start. You might, without even really knowing it, start with some version of the 50-30-20 budget. And it might not be those exact breakdowns, it might be, I don't know, 60-30-10 or something like that. But what the idea behind it is, 50% of your whole budget is going for your needs, right? Like the things that you need to survive. If one of your goals with your budget is paying down debt, your minimum debt payments would also go into this category. And then 30% of your income are your wants. Another part of the reason that I like this budget is because it really lets you sit down and think about what is important to you and what it is that you really need, right? Because for somebody like me, in normal, not COVID times, daycare is something that I've got to pay for because I've got kids. And me and my spouse both have jobs. Daycare gets cheaper the older your kids are per week, right? So it's more expensive for a baby than it is for a 5-year-old. And we were looking for a nanny at the time that we were expecting a baby. And so we're like, but no, it would have still been actually about double what we were paying. We did officially pull our kids out of daycare a few weeks ago because they haven't gone to daycare since March, and we've been paying $1,000 a month to hold their spots for when things go back to normal.
I know somebody who recently, within the last year, had a child and was looking for daycare, and it actually ended up being cheaper for them to hire a nanny than to send them to daycare in the area that they lived in. Is that like in the metro area? Is that not the case, or had you not looked at it before? Or?
So we looked at a nanny at one point because we thought that maybe it would be a little bit, obviously it's easier. That's why people pay for them. But we thought it might also be more affordable because, in our family, right, like the person that owned the daycare that our kids were going to said, if you keep paying, and that was half of what we were paying.
Oh.
Right, so it was half of our monthly payment to hold their spots. And she said, if you do this, I will give you a 10% discount forever and until the end of time when things go back to normal and your kids come back. Well, okay, for maybe like 2 or 3 months, yeah, it was worth it to, for that 10% discount. But now as it's become super clear that things aren't going back to normal, I'll be working from home for the foreseeable future. And we have family members who have compromised immune systems. Yeah, I'm very relieved that we could pull that expense out of our budget.
And I know that we're getting off topic here, but I honestly,
okay.
I'm going to apologize in advance for the duration of this podcast because I don't think that Rachel and I have ever had a conversation that stays on topic 100%
No.
of the time. So throughout this entire pandemic, I've known that childcare has been an issue for people. I work in a school. Hearing that somebody is paying $2,000 a month for childcare is just like, it's like mind-blowing to me because I don't have that experience. I don't know those type of budget items. So that's just, it's like, I'm trying to think. I don't think that there is really anything other than debt that I spend $1,000 a month on. Like, it's just wild to me.
Yeah, and I will say the Twin Cities metropolitan area is the third most expensive place in the country for daycare.
Wow.
But I'll tell you what, we don't have the third highest wages in the country. To go through like see, and that's a challenge also outside of this budget, or the 50 30 20 budget. But if you're the type of person or people, and I think we are, that want people to be compensated fairly for their work and be able to afford like health insurance and pay all of their own bills, because you also know people aren't, in whatever job you're not doing your best job if you're stressed out about getting food on your table. You want good value for what you're getting. And so we thought, well, let's go through an agency that provides, like the healthcare and pays out. And also, turns out that hiring a nanny is a big old pain in the butt, because then you have to account for like payroll taxes and stuff like that. We're like, we'll go through an agency that does all that work for you. And no, for the care that we would have needed for our then 3 kids, it would have been a little bit more than $4,000 a month. And yeah, I'm going to be real honest, like, unless you are like an accountant, right? Like somebody that does this for their job.
Right.
When you have a brand new human being in your family and you are embarking on a years-long journey of being chronically exhausted, that is not the time to learn payroll law. It is not.
No. So even if you like hire them as like an independent contractor, because I'm thinking of like of people who do like virtual assistant positions or those types of things. So they're independent contractors. They're responsible for their own taxes. Then I mean they're also responsible for their own health insurance, like those types of things.
Yeah.
Is it not the same when you hire a nanny? Like is the expectation across like the nanny?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it could be the same, but then you as an employer are still, right, like you're kind of trying to take into account, right, like what is their take-home pay and what do they need to pay in taxes.
Yeah,
so even if you're not the one who could hire a nanny as an independent contractor, but then you would still be doing some of those mental logistics of making sure that they're getting paid fairly for their labor.
Wow.
And be able to pay their taxes later.
All right, then. That's a today I learned.
Yeah, that's why we were like, no. First of all, we didn't have that kind of money, and also it just seemed like hiring a nanny is just a ton of work.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it should be easier.
Yeah.
So.
Which I that does make sense. I mean, you're hiring somebody to care for your children. It makes sense that would be. I don't know. I'm just like I don't have that experience, so I'm thinking of the amount of research and time I put into hiring somebody to redo our roof and to find an electrician to put in an outlet for us, and that's, I mean, even that has been trying to make sure that people are licensed and insured and all of those types of things. I can't imagine that, like, how much more difficult that would be when you're trying to hire somebody to care for your children. Like, that's got to be like a whole new level of stress.
Yeah, because I would say, right, like at best you could just hope, like if you're hiring an electrician, they just walk into your house and you say, hey, can you wire this? And they do it, and then you write them a check and they leave. Like, I think that's about the best that you could hope for. But anyway, yeah, circling back to the budget, I think any kind of a budget that's going to give you the opportunity to really sit down and think about where you're spending your money, right? Like, that's a good square one, because most of us just don't have a truckload of money sitting around that we could just spend willy-nilly.
Right. Unfortunately, that is not how it works for most people.
Yeah, I know. Wouldn't it be great?
It would be fantastic.
But then we wouldn't be doing this podcast either.
That's very true. We would not have been in this situation in life
No,
to lead us to this. So
it's true. It's a mixed blessing. There we go.
very true.
So then we've got, right, that 30%, thinking about your wants. Right? Like, what are the things that make your life a little bit better, but that maybe you can get by without? And I know I'm looking. I read this NerdWallet article about it, and they mentioned specifically monthly subscriptions, travel, entertainment, and meals out. And I'll pick up that meals out piece because we talked about it in our first episode. I think that it would be fair to say that meals out every day would count as a want, but also neither one of us are living your life.
Right.
So if you need to pick up a pizza on your way home every single day because that's how you're going to get yourself fed, well, it turns out that eating is super important. So again, it really kind of just boils down to that, thinking about what it really is that you need to get by.
Right.
I'll say in our family with the monthly subscriptions, we subscribe to Star Trek Starship Collection. And if we were going to cut something out, that would be it, because it turns out that you do not need a Jem'Hadar cruiser sitting on your shelf to live. So
Very true. I will say, as an aside, I think that, like, when you're looking at categories of budgets, do what makes sense to you, not what is like defaulted to, and whatever budget method you select. So for us, I have our internet is included under our housing budget because that is one of those recurring monthly bills that pretty much, no matter what, cannot be cut. It is part of our housing, and that is just due to our jobs, especially at this time. That one, it has to be part of our required living expenses. So
yes.
I include that differently than other people would possibly consider internet.
And I would say, really, even, you mentioned subscriptions. Even within subscriptions, there's a lot of variety, right? Like, in our family, we have a weekly subscription to a produce box through a company called Imperfect Foods. That, yes, it's a subscription, but it's part of the food budget because it's produce. And so that kind of a subscription is way different than, again, just using my family as an example, the Star Trek Starship Collection, right?
I do just love that that's part of it. Like, I really do.
Well,
awesome.
You get 2 ships a month. It comes with a stamp.
So I'm completely unfamiliar with the subscription service. I've never heard of it before tonight, but I immediately already love.
Also, this is so fun. You get a magazine with your ship with technical schematics and a history of the ship.
Oh, that is so cool.
Oh yeah, it's pretty fun.
And this is the story of how Rachel and Cheyenne caused each other to spend more money on things they don't need while talking about budgets. So I'm really glad that you mentioned the Imperfect Foods subscription, because I know that has worked really well for your family. It did not work very well for us. We did try it, and we had some quality issues. Now, I do think that ours was due to location. As I mentioned in the very first introduction episode, we live in a rural area, so it does take a little bit longer to ship to us, and I think that was part of it. But I would mention that there are other options out there for food subscription boxes. Specifically, I think of HelloFresh, which we had tried a long time ago, and we liked. The only issue that we had with it was we needed leftovers and it didn't provide that for us.
Mm.
But if that's something that works for your family, if figuring out your food budget that way works, by all means, man, go
Right.
for it. And also, like, look for coupon codes wherever you can. I just, whenever I'm purchasing anything, I do have a couple of add-ons that I use, and I could probably throw those into a separate message somewhere that plays or something like that, because there are some of those things that I use. So I use those that automatically look for coupon codes for me.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know
have
why
those
that
too.
was a very difficult string of words for me. Coupon codes. But I also just Google it if I'm looking for something, because worst case scenario, I don't find anything and I was going to spend the money anyway, but best case scenario, I find some sort of
Right, a coupon, and then you save money
right.
on something that you were going to buy anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Also,
no. Although I will say, one of my complaints about HelloFresh, they don't let you. They're a lot more stingy with their coupons.
They definitely are. Their
And they're
intro,
expensive.
they are, and their intro deals that they give out are great. I mean, when
Yes.
you're looking at them, but that recurring thing, it does tend to be a little bit more expensive. If you're at a place in your life where you can afford that, that might work for you. I know for us, a constant struggle in our house, and Rachel and I've been talking about this for going on like 8 years now. In our household, we really struggle to make a meal plan and follow it. And it turns out the following it piece is the really important part, because we're great at like making a meal plan, but when we get to like Monday night and we're like thinking we're gonna make this really awesome, super easy, quick dinner, and it actually gets to it, it's like impossible. It's like damn near impossible for us to like do it because we're exhausted. So
right.
We've looked more towards like doing like freezer meals and that kind of stuff, because we're very tired people.
Yeah. Well, and it's so true, right? Like on the weekend or even at the beginning of the day, you're like, yeah, I can take 30 minutes at the end of the day. And then you get home from work and 30 minutes might as well be like 90 hours. Because
Okay, so I'm gonna get really real for a second here. Like, first of all, Saturday, Sunday shy is significantly more ambitious than Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night shy. Like she has no energy for anything at that point. But also, a 30-minute meal does not exist in my world. Like, I cannot make anything in 30 minutes. Also, my wife is laughing at me right now because she knows it's true. She's just nodding her head over there. Like, I think the only thing I can make in 30 minutes is toast. And that's like hit or miss, really.
But yeah, or you think, I'm going to change. I can do it. No,
Right.
you can't. I mean,
No.
Okay, I don't want to like down talk anybody who's listening who thinks that you can do it. Give it a shot, but also don't beat yourself up if it doesn't pan out, because let's be real, it doesn't pan out for anybody.
It's true. I have been I would say more seriously for the last 2 to 3 years, I have been making more of an effort to plan, prep, and prepare meals weekly. And I'm better now than I was 3 years ago, but we're still nowhere near following like a budget exactly. It's just not a thing that we do in our house, because part of it is we live a very busy life, and that is by choice. That is absolutely our choice. We could choose to do nothing in our evenings, but that's typically not the case. We're pretty consistently not home. And
Well, I mean, and there's no need to be miserable, right? Like if you were home and doing nothing,
right.
Because you didn't want to be tired, well, then you'd probably still be tired and also be miserable because you wouldn't be doing the things that you like doing.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm going to be really honest. Sometimes the thing that we're busy doing is binge watching, and I fully support that as a thing that people do, and that's an excuse to not make dinner, because I get it.
That's true.
Pretty much my life.
I'll circle back to the
Yep.
budget. That last 20%, right? I think first off, like, okay, I know I just said I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. This time I'm going to tell you how to live your life. Focus on paying off your credit cards first, right? Like those high interest debts where you can't negotiate down the interest rate, or I don't know, anything else like that that people do. The most important thing, if you decide to follow this budget plan with that last 20%, is to pay off that high interest stuff first, and then focus on having an emergency fund. And then depending on how old you are, I'm gonna say like Shai and I are both in our 30s, saving for retirement should really be last, right? Like at this age, like if you're at this age and you're saving like 1 or 2% for retirement, you're gonna be fine by the time you are in your late 60s. If you're older than that, well, it's a little bit different, but yeah, so that is kind of that very last piece. That's fine. That's you. But that consumer debt really will bog you down in a way that like a car loan or a student loan or a mortgage will not. Well, so I'll throw this in as a fun personal tidbit for our listeners. So my oldest daughter, Elizabeth, is 6. So she was doing okay with learning to read before the coronavirus. And then as soon as we started distance learning, she was like 100%, nope, I am not going to learn how to read. I don't need it. I don't need to learn how to read. It turns out that you do.
It does, yeah.
It's important. But she also really wants to be a scientist when she grows up. And so for months, I've just been saying, if you want to be a scientist, you've got to learn how to read. But at first she was like, no, that's not true. You can just like write symbols and stuff. But I think I might be getting through to her because she's starting to kind of like get into it. But part of it is that she keeps absconding with all of my notebooks to practice writing. And so like I can't really be upset about it. And I'm glad that she's starting to get excited about learning how to read so that she can be a scientist. That's good.
Right. Yeah.
But one other thing that I just thought was worth mentioning about the ratio itself is that I also feel like it's a pretty solid metaphor for how to spend your time, right? Like if you're, at least in my experience, if you're stressed out about money, you're also probably stressed out about your time and you don't know where to put your priorities. And so I think it's real solid to also use it as an opportunity to say, okay, well, I'm also going to spend 50% of my time doing the things that I need to do to just get through today, and again, whatever that looks like for you. And then 30% just like fun stuff that makes your day better, whether it costs money or not. And then 20% things that your future self will thank you for doing. So I don't know, that might be a little bit kind of woo-woo and new agey, but that's my opinion. That I thought that was worth mentioning. That it could be a good way to budget your money and budget your time as well.
No, I absolutely agree. I do agree. That is a good, I think we've mentioned before that we use Anchor to record our pod. Something that's really cool about Anchor is it allows us to share a link and it allows our listeners to record a voice message for us. And that would be awesome if you would be willing to leave a voice message with a question or a comment or really anything that you think that you want to share with us. I mean, maybe you have some sort of financial win or some sort of financial horror story that you want to share with other people so they don't make that same mistake. I mean, that would be fantastic. So I will put that link out on social media. And speaking of social media, go ahead and follow us on Twitter. At Twitter, we are at finance_what. On Facebook, we are Finance What, and please message us on Facebook as well, or comment or something like that. If we've been sharing some posts, and that's going to start to speed up. Although we're talking about this before you're really even going to know that, so that's some like weird timey-wimey stuff there.
Right. This is like time travel, kind
It
of.
is. This is super cool.
Yeah.
And then also we do have an email that you can contact us at, as if you're not comfortable messaging on any of those platforms and you just want it to be private. Also, at any time, if any of the information that you share with us, you're okay with us sharing with our listeners, but want to remain anonymous, just let us know. We will absolutely accommodate that. If you're okay with us identifying you by first name, however you want that to look, just be very specific and let us know. That would be great.
Yeah.
And our email is what_the_finance@protonmail.com. And we would love to hear from you about what you want to hear. If you've got questions, really anything. We do have a timeline of kind of what we're looking at doing schedule wise for recording, but if we're getting something that people are asking about for a lot, then we can, it's a pretty loose timeline. We can kind of slip things in, or we can maybe add an extra episode one week or something like that.
Yep, exactly. And just to Cheyenne's point about privacy, part of the reason that we chose Proton Mail for our podcast email is because of how secure they are. They're one of the most secure email servers out there on the internet. So if you're worried about your information in that way, the reason that we picked them was because of how secure they are.
They are actually based out of, I want to say, Switzerland, which is, if you are aware, they are very well known for their privacy standards. So, I love my Google Suite stuff. I love Gmail, but Proton Mail for this particular instance was the best option for us.